6 weeks before the divorce hearing, I was at my office desk reviewing a subcontractor billing file I'd already looked at twice that week. Not because it was complicated, because something in the pattern kept pulling me back, and I hadn't decided what to do about it yet. I put the billing file on the left side of my desk, opened my drawer, took out the joint account statements I'd printed 11 days ago and hadn't touched since. Set them side by side. The pattern was identical. I sat with both documents for 4 minutes. I know it was 4 minutes because the compliance software clock updates every minute, and I watched it twice. Then I put the statements back in the drawer, locked it, went home. My wife had been moving $178,000 out of our marriage for 2 years. I'd known something was wrong for 11 weeks. And I'd spent most of that time doing exactly what I just described, looking at it, recognizing it, and locking the drawer. If you've ever watched someone build a case against you, while you stood there letting them stay with me, this is that story. And if you're finding this on Familiax Revenge for the first time, hitting subscribe takes 3 seconds and means you won't miss how it ends. Let me go back to where it actually started. I've spent 22 years in municipal infrastructure compliance. That means I read maintenance logs nobody else reads, cross-reference inspection dates that don't match, and flag billing patterns in subcontractor files that look clean until you map them against a timeline. It's not dramatic work. Nobody calls to say thank you. Things just keep running, and most people never know why. That's more or less who I am. My desk is next to Pete's. Pete is 58 and counts days to retirement out loud. 63 days when this started, not that I was keeping track. Our office smells like old paper, and the particular brand of burned coffee that happens when the pot sits on the burner past noon. I know every pipe in the 3 municipal buildings I cover. I know which inspection records are filed wrong going back to 2009. I am precise about things other people consider irrelevant. My marriage was not one of those things. That's the part I have to be honest about. Diane and I were married 22 years. No dramatic fights. No plates thrown. The marriage ended the way infrastructure fails when nobody's running proper maintenance. Not in a collapse, just slow invisible corrosion that looks fine on the surface until suddenly it isn't. 3 years ago, she asked to take over the household finances. Said it would make tax season easier. I said yes on a Tuesday. I remember the day because I was reviewing a pump station report, and she asked while I was still half reading it. I said yes without looking up. Here is what I don't say out loud very often. I said yes, because looking at our joint accounts meant looking at a number. That number would show me exactly what 22 years had added up to. I wasn't ready to see that number, so I handed her the access codes and didn't think about it for 8 months. After the handover, she gave me 3 tax filings to sign. I signed them. Didn't read them. Thought about reading them. Signed anyway. That's the thing about avoidance. It doesn't feel like a decision when you're doing it. It just feels like later, and later keeps moving. The message wasn't dramatic. Diane's phone lit up on the arm of the couch. She'd left it face up, which she'd stopped doing months ago. Unsaved number. 7 words. Everything will be ready before the hearing. I read it in under 2 seconds. She came back from the other room. I handed her the phone without looking at her. She said something about the show. I answered. The hand that passed the phone back was steady. I made sure of that. I didn't ask about it. Didn't mention it. Went to work the next morning. For 6 weeks I did nothing. Told myself it could mean anything. Almost believed that. Pete asked once if everything was okay. Divorce stuff, I said. He nodded. That was it. What broke the denial wasn't anger. It was a subcontractor billing file, legitimate company. Transfers sized to stay under automatic fraud detection thresholds. I'd flagged this exact pattern in other people's paperwork a dozen times. I stared at it. Then I went home and opened our joint accounts for the first time in 3 years. 40 minutes to find the first transfer. 2 more hours to find the shape of it. Though 178 Zelozen. Moved across 26 months in increments that would pass any standard review. Same methodology I used to catch subcontractors who think nobody's watching. The name Evan Pike appeared 3 times. I wrote 7 pages of notes on my field inspection legal pad. Exact, small handwriting. No corrections. Pulled a granola bar from the field supply drawer. Ate it standing. In the morning I looked up forensic accountants. For 3 days after finding the accounts I didn't call anyone. Went to work. Flagged a pressure discrepancy Thursday. Wrote it up Friday. Normal week. If you didn't know what was sitting in my home office drawer, Howard sent over the preliminary divorce papers. Sign here, initial there. House, accounts, car, all Diane's. I read through them twice. The thing I almost did was sign them. Not because I was afraid to fight, but because fighting meant sitting inside every decision I'd made for 3 years. The finance handover. The tax forms I signed without reading. The 11 weeks of handing Diane her phone back and going to bed. Fighting meant accounting for all of it. Easier to let her have it. Smaller life, cleaner. No accounting required. I sat with that option long enough that it started feeling reasonable. That part bothers me more than anything else when I think about it now. What moved me wasn't anger. It was something closer to professional embarrassment. I flagged this exact pattern in subcontractor files, transfers sized to avoid detection. A name appearing 3 times where it shouldn't appear once. I write it up, send it up the chain, done. The idea that I'd find the same thing in my own accounts, and just agree to the outcome. Let someone use my own methodology against me and call it settled. That I couldn't do. Not because I was furious. Because it was sloppy work. And I don't do sloppy work. I called Helen Marsh that evening from the street outside Howard's building. Helen Marsh came recommended by a colleague who'd used her in a contract dispute 2 years prior. I wrote her number on the back of a field inspection form, called her from the street outside Howard's building. 4 sentences total, availability Thursday. I said Thursday worked. That was the entire conversation. I appreciated that more than I expected to. Howard's meeting had gone differently. He asked settle or fight. I said settle, agreed to the house accounts, car, signed the preliminary agreement while he watched. He looked at me for one moment after, the kind of look that means a question he's decided not to ask. I didn't explain. I'd already called Helen 3 days before this meeting. The agreement I just signed was the trap being set, not the outcome. Helen's office had 2 chairs, a desk between them, nothing personal visible anywhere. I gave her 3 sets of account statements and sat the way I sit in pre-inspection briefings, straight, ready to receive information. She asked 4 questions. I answered 3 fully. The 4th, had I accessed the joint investment account directly, I paused on. Not successfully, I said. She wrote something down and said she'd call me. I was outside in 11 minutes. I tried the investment account myself 2 days later from my work computer. I trust those systems more than my personal ones, which is the kind of logic that holds until it doesn't. Credentials had been restructured, my access removed. 40 minutes on hold with the bank, formal request submitted, 9 days wait. The records that came back covered everything except the last 18 months, precisely the period I needed most. I filed the incomplete records and stuck a yellow post-it flag on the drawer. Same flags I use for inspection discrepancies. Howard found out about the work computer a week later. 1 sentence, use your personal device going forward. I said okay, and didn't explain why I'd used the work one. The honest answer was too circular to say out loud. Helen called 11 days after our first meeting. Come in. Her office again, 3 sections laid out on the desk. First, 178,000 moved across 2 years in increment size specifically to avoid automatic flagging. I recognized the pattern before she finished explaining and said so without meaning to. Helen looked up. Yes. Someone knew exactly what they were doing. Second, my own signature on 3 tax filings listing Pike's firm as a legitimate consulting expense. She put the page between us and didn't say anything. I asked how bad it was for me. She said it's not what it looks like, she could show that. I picked up the page, read it, set it down, picked it up again. Only document in the entire case I couldn't process in a single pass. Third, Pike had a junior partner, 29 years old, name of Scott, who had processed the majority of the transfers. 31 transaction records with his name on them. Helen flagged it as criminal participation or professional negligence. Probably the latter, possibly both. She asked how I wanted to handle it. I asked if we needed his records. She said they were the connective tissue. Without them, Pike's involvement looked circumstantial. I didn't answer for a moment. Not long, the length of time it takes to read 1 line of an inspection report. Then I said include them. Helen wrote it down and didn't ask why I'd paused. I didn't explain it. I drove back to the water treatment site I'd left mid-inspection. Finished the walkthrough, flagged the line 3 coupling for immediate review. Wrote it up on the drive back. Didn't think about Scott during the inspection. Thought about him on the drive home, 4 minutes, approximately. Then the day ended. Helen sent the preliminary report 3 weeks before the hearing. 41 pages. I printed it at my home office desk, read pages 1 through 18, and set it on top of an active water treatment inspection file I was also finishing that week. Told myself the first 18 pages were enough. Didn't pick it up again for 4 days. The inspection file got finished. The report sat under it. I put it there. That part matters. Pre-hearing conference with Howard and Lowe, Diane's attorney. Lowe referenced a specific account transfer, asked me to respond. I couldn't counter it precisely. Said I'd respond in writing. Lowe's expression didn't change. It didn't need to. He already believed I had nothing. This confirmed it for him. I called Helen after, standing on the front steps of the building. One sentence from her, page 22. That was the entire call. I read page 22 that night at my desk. The transfer Lowe had referenced connected Pike's firm directly to Diane's personal account. Eliminated every innocent interpretation. Clearest evidence in the case. I'd had it for 4 days. Put it under an inspection file and left it there. I read it 3 times. Didn't sleep well. Howard's office the next morning. Same 2 chairs. I sat forward this time, slightly, not dramatically. Told him everything. Asset trail Helen's findings. My own signature Scott the pending audit mechanism. What I wanted to hand the judge. Howard listened without writing anything down. When I finished he said, "You want to include your own signature?" I said yes. He said that's either very smart or very risky. I said both. He looked at me for a moment. The same moment assessment as the first meeting, except something in it shifted. Then he started writing. I could have hidden the signature page. Helen wouldn't have insisted. I included it because it was accurate. 22 years of not looking accurately at my own life was enough. Howard didn't say any of this. Neither did I. The week before the hearing I had a document filing at the courthouse. Routine. 10 minutes. Diane was there with Lowe, something else on their calendar. They were laughing at something, not performing it, just laughing. She was wearing the earrings from our first anniversary. She'd stopped wearing them around year 12. I stood in the corridor for 11 seconds. Counted without deciding to, same way I count pressure intervals at inspection sites. Then went to the filing window, submitted the document, took the receipt, left. The night before the hearing I sat at my home office desk, with the court documents on the left side, and an active inspection report on the right. I finished the inspection report first. Then I opened the court documents to page 22. Read it once. Not because I needed to, because I wanted to remember that I almost didn't. I set my alarm for 6:30, went to bed, lay awake for a while, not rehearsing anything, just awake. The courtroom was small and institutional. Fluorescent lighting identical to my office. I noticed that and found it clarifying rather than ironic. Howard sat to my left. Diane and Lowe were across. Lowe had a presentation prepared. I had one document. Lowe went first. The financial summary was polished and confident. Grant Reeves contributed nothing of significance to the marital assets. The record speaks for itself. The settlement as proposed is entirely reasonable. He referenced 3 specific accounts. Named figures. Spoke for 11 minutes. Diane looked at me twice during Lowe's presentation. I looked back each time. Nothing in my expression, not performed calm, just actual calm. There was nothing left to perform. I had done everything already. She looked away first. Both times. The judge asked if I had anything to add. Howard said, "We have one document, Your Honor." I stood, walked to the clerk, handed over the bound court filing, sat back down. Hands flat on the table, not gripping, flat. The judge read page 1, then page 2, then looked up at Lowe and asked 3 questions. Lowe answered the first fully, the second partially. On the third he asked for a recess. Granted, 15 minutes. When Lowe had referenced the page 22 transfer earlier, the same one from the pre-hearing conference, I countered it in 2 sentences. Precise, complete. Lowe paused, continued. The pause was visible to everyone in the room, which I don't think he intended. During the recess Diane passed me in the corridor. Didn't stop. Then stopped, she said. "You knew." I said, "Wes," she said, "since when?" I thought about telling her, the couch, the phone, the 7 words, the 11 weeks, all of it. Decided against it, it was mine. She didn't get the accounting. I said, "Long enough." She looked at me for a moment. The private version of Diane, flat, efficient, no performance. I'd seen that face maybe twice in 22 years. She recovered it quickly and walked back toward Lowe. I watched her go. Noticed the earrings again. Didn't say anything about them. Didn't file it away either. The drawer was empty now. I understood that standing in the corridor, everything that had been in it was either in the court documents or in this hallway. Nothing left to file. The recess became a continuance. Full financial review ordered. The pending audit activated exactly as filed. Pike cooperated within 2 weeks. Legal exposure, a family, the usual calculations. Asset trail reconstructed completely. Scott's records were the connective tissue Helen said they would be. Settlement rewritten. Grant recovered the majority of $178,000. Diane faced formal fraud findings, financial penalties, professional damage. Lowe faced a bar complaint. 3 months later, Howard sent one email. For what it's worth, I've seen a lot of these. Most people don't play it that long. I read it at my desk. Started a reply twice. Both times the window for a natural response passed before I finished. I closed the draft and left it there. Pete asked if the divorce had finalized. I said yes. He said 61 days to retirement. I said congratulations. He said it's not a congratulations situation, it's just a number. I said fair enough. Most honest conversation we'd had in 6 years. 6 weeks after the hearing, I was back at the water treatment facility for the quarterly walkthrough. Same chain, link fence at the perimeter, where I'd taken Helen's call 4 months earlier. Between the main inspection and the line 3 coupling check, I had 4 minutes. I opened the Bar Association website on my phone. Not the first time. I checked once from my car 2 weeks after the hearing. This was the second. Scott's license suspended. 18 months. Eligible for reinstatement review. I read it once. Put the phone in my chest pocket. The site engineer called me back. Line 3 coupling had deteriorated further since last quarter. Needed immediate escalation. I walked back over, made the flag, wrote it up. Exact handwriting. No corrections. I keep the same mechanical pencil I've used since 1998. Red refillable eraser replaced when it wears down. Diane called it that ugly thing once, maybe twice. I still have it. The settlement covers what I need. The apartment is quieter than the house was, which I expected, and smaller, which I don't mind. Howard's email is still in my drafts folder. 2 sentences started, neither finished. The window for a natural response passed a long time ago. I've checked it 3 times since. Still there. Still unfinished. Tuesday morning. Gas station. Same pump available today, which doesn't always happen. I sat in the car with the engine off. 7 minutes early with nothing to fill them. I didn't reach for my phone. Didn't run through the day's inspection schedule. Didn't think about Diane or Scott's reinstatement review, or the draft sitting in my outbox. I just sat there, which I don't usually let myself do. If this story stayed with you, I'd appreciate a like and subscribe to Familix's Revenge. It helps me keep sharing these. Thanks for being here for all of it. I pulled out of the gas station, merged onto the main road, got to work exactly when I planned.